Welcome to Framework and the episode where we talk about the new Thor movie, Thor: Love and Thunder. This is John, one of the hosts of Framework. With me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. How are you, Al?
I'm doing well. We've got a lot of Marvel stuff to talk about, as we apparently always do now.
Yeah. We're a movie podcast talking about pop culture, and this dominates pop culture. This is the thing now.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this a little before, or at least I've complained about it, that it does. We've turned a corner here in Phase 4, where I was a full-blown Marvel zombie throughout all of Phase 3. Like, I didn't think there was really, I mean, some were better than others. The worst one was still like perfectly fine, and I really liked some of the better ones. But Phase 4 is really getting to the point where it's starting to feel oppressive to me, trying to keep up. And Disney Plus is to blame.
Yeah. I kind of sense you were headed toward this argument, and I think it's right. I think it's right on, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Before we talk about Disney Plus, because Miss Marvel ended today as we're recording this, but first we got Thor: Love and Thunder, which was sort of the chance for Phase 4 to turn around. I guess Spider-Man: No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness were also that to a degree, but
yeah,
No Way Home kind of did it. I mean,
No Way Home was a hit movie that people liked. I mean,
that we liked.
Yeah, most people liked that. It was pretty much universally tolerated, at least, and some people really were into it.
Yeah, and you and I were more split on Multiverse of Madness, and now we've got Love and Thunder, which I had, of all of them, I think this is the one I had the highest hopes for, or maybe hopes is the wrong word, but expectations, because I had hopes that No Way Home would work, but not confidence. And I thought Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth are a good team at this point.
Yes.
I think Ragnarok is just flat out one of the best comedies of the last decade, full stop. And more of that in that vein seemed like it was more of a can't miss thing than whereas I had hopes for No Way Home, but felt like, well, they could definitely miss this.
Oh, for sure.
And it turns out they kind of made No Way Home work and kind of missed on this one that seemed like it was a shoo-in.
I'm going to blow your mind. Thor: Love and Thunder, easily my favorite Phase 4 movie.
Really?
I really liked it. I'm kind of taken aback by everyone else's reaction to this. I thought this was delightful. No one else feels this way. I know.
I act shocked to hear that, but at 1 second after you said it, I'm like, well, actually, that I can totally understand that. It is likable, and that is the great asset of it. I just, honestly, it reminds me a little bit of Wonder Woman 1984.
I've heard this take. Savage, but go on.
They have a similar like neon color palette to a degree. There's also like 1980s vibes with the way this, models itself as, 1/4 the way to a Guns N' Roses rock opera.
I like that. Yeah.
And also just kind of messy, but people really hated Wonder Woman 1984, but I think your and I take on that was, this wasn't great. It doesn't hang together that well, but it's just kind of amiable, and that goes a long way, particularly in the DC context, where those poor little goth kids over there, they can be make it hard to love them.
That qualifies as one of their better films, probably still of the Snyder era.
I mean, somehow. This is similarly shaggy, and I don't think it hangs together that well, but it is very likable. It is very much in the vein of Ragnarok, where it's still like one half step short of being a full-blown spoof.
I think Ragnarok is a bit funnier, more successful as a comedy. I think, and the middle section, which obviously goes on for longer and is a larger chunk of the film in Ragnarok, is probably more successful than the middle section with the gods in Love and Thunder. But I like that part anyway. But for the most part, I as much as people loved Ragnarok, I'm really surprised to see the knives come out for this one. because they feel like they're very similar to me, like similar positives, similar negatives. I feel like he went out and made a sequel to a movie people really liked, and it's like, we'll do it again, and now people are like, nope, don't like it this time.
I think a lot of that is Taika Waititi overexposure.
Yeah,
That's taken place over the last year, overlapping with Phase 4 being, Marvel overexposure. I mean, people have been complaining about that since like 2011. That is too much Marvel, but
it's really too
over the
Marvel.
last 2 years, it's really cranked up with the Disney Plus shows. The sheer like number of minutes of Marvel content has like quadrupled, and it's not the quality level. Debatable what it was through the first 3 phases, but I don't think it's debatable that it has fallen off in terms of consistency when you factor in the Disney Plus shows and Shang-Chi and the Eternals, your Black Widows.
Well, larger picture here. I here's the thing. I think if you just look at the films that have come out in Phase 4, which I believe, if you go through it, it is Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and now Thor: Love and Thunder. I think that the track record there is about Phase 2. About, if those came out without the Disney Plus shows, you just see those. Like there's some stinkers in there. There's some pretty good ones in there. Really, I guess No Way Home is the only one that most people agreed on. But I mean, you look at Phase 2. You got
one sidebar here.
It's not 1-to-1, but
is Far From Home not part of Phase 4? Was that not the lead off to Phase 4?
No, it is the coda of Phase 3.
Technically. All right. Well, yeah. I'm making
They're
the
also separated by
motion.
a pandemic. They're separated by a pandemic. I think it is really Phase 3 and spiritually Phase 3.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's post Endgame though. Like it is the Marvel Universe operating in the post Endgame world, and to me, that puts it in the same category.
No, regardless. it's like the Breaking Bad movie. It's like it's Avengers Endgame. Grand whatever that thing was. It's
Turismo. That's not right. Torino.
It's not Gran Torino either. The Breaking Bad movie. It's just a little after
El Camino. That's what it was. I think Phase 2 though had higher highs. Like Phase 2 kicked off with Iron Man 3 and included Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy 1, which are 3 of the best Marvel movies overall. And No Way Home is probably, at least in my estimation, not as good as any 3 of those 3, and handily the best of Phase
4. Fair point, except I really loved Love and Thunder. I would put it up in that tier. I had a ball with this. I think it. Here's the thing. Like Ragnarok, the things that people are complaining about with Love and Thunder were actually problems I had with Ragnarok. Why I wasn't as on board with Ragnarok as I felt most people were. I liked it, but I was like, I'm kind of a little. I don't know. I'm a little annoyed that they kind of sketched out so much of this. Like hell, it doesn't have that much to do. Scourge doesn't have that much to do. They just shit on the Warriors 3, and I was invested in them a little bit at least. And yes, this colonialism plotline a little undercooked. But the more I watched,
it certainly was,
and I've watched it a number of times now. Those have ceased to be problems for me, and it's become kind of a pleasant thing. It's kind of that they are brushed over in this way, that they are present, but they are given kind of short shift. And the focus of the film is to be a big cartoonish He-Man movie that is funny and fun to watch. And that is such a strong appeal of it that I'm fine with that other stuff being not as developed as it could, because it would get in the way of the party. And yet the movie is about something because of those things. So it works for me now. Ragnarok works for me now. And taking that understanding of Ragnarok into Love and Thunder, I was just struck by them doing the exact same thing again, successfully. And it worked for me about as good as that one did.
Well, I think the difference is, I mean, you're right that it's the same tone, largely the same cast, doing very similar things. But I think the problem for me is Ragnarok has a really, really high like success percentage with its jokes. Like say, 80+% of them land for me. And Love and Thunder, it's down like probably in the 50 something range.
But is it just less jokes? I think there are palpably less jokes.
Oh, there are more jokes, or just as many, but a lot more duds. And that is worse than having less jokes, like less less laughs. Having laughs miss is deadly, and there's a fair amount of that in this movie, which is a bummer, and it drives home to me too how with comedies generally, and especially with this Thor stuff too, and I guess it goes to a lot of Marvel stuff, but the whole thing of Marvel's success is making this stuff look easy that really isn't, but
Right.
it can drive home how fine the line is between something working and not working. And so, a few jokes don't land, and apparently Ragnarok drops like significantly in my estimation. Another way of, or like example of this would be Thor's weapons, for example. Like,
Yeah.
Mjolnir is a silly thing to be throwing around and swinging at people, but Hemsworth kind of pulls it off, and it works kind of okay. Stormbreaker, the big axe, was sort of a nice idea, how it incorporated Groot's, arm into it in Infinity War and all, but looks a lot goofier, and it's a little harder to follow the action sequences with that, or care about them. And then Zeus's lightning bolt in this, like, I gather that on the script level has established is a like super duper weapon that will allow them to, I don't know, hurt the big boss in the video game fight. But
I guess
it looks like it came out of a Walmart Halloween costume. And all the Thor, all the Asgard stuff, all the Zeus stuff is
plastic armor,
knowingly silly. Yes, but the plastic armor, something about that. There's such a fine line there where with Odin, or I don't know, Malekith the Dark Elf, it's just on the right side of, okay, this is like kind of goofy, but not cheap. And things look cheap in this movie.
I think they've always looked like this. I think this has always been the Thor aesthetic. I think Ragnarok maybe is a bit nicer, a bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's got sort of a rugged kind of nomad look for a good chunk of that movie. That helps, but for the most part, this is they are masters of the universe characters. That's, I think I've made this reference before, that they have the look and feel of He-Man play toys, and I really like that. It's a more successful version of that than Masters of the Universe ever was in its way, and I think that they double down on that here, with the big plastic thing that he just suits up on in this, and the fact that Christian Bale just looks like a Skeletor guy. He looks like a Halloween ghoul. It's a great design, I think.
Yeah, he looks movie quality. He doesn't look like the Halloween costume version of that villain.
Not wrong. Okay. As opposed to Thor, yes. Mm-hmm.
Or I'm thinking of the very end of Step Brothers. You're just like, it's okay that mine's not movie quality. And I think there's just a subtle difference between having an expensive looking Chewbacca mask and the plastic, like, chintzy version, that, like, even with the expensive looking version, it's still knowingly silly, but there's just this fine line that you tiptoe over.
I thought this was a good looking movie. I enjoyed all the design on display. There's a lot of just going for broke, goofy aesthetic character design in this. Everyone in the City of the Gods looks hilarious. There's a dwarf head with feet at the bottom of it. All that stuff I'm into.
Should there have been anybody serious there? Like, should there have been a mix of the goofy and serious? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that, because I'm not sure it would have worked. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to take Hercules seriously.
Well, he's Roy Kent, so I mean, he's not going to be super serious.
I mean, I don't know that we were ever that there was ever a version of the Marvel Universe where we take Hercules seriously. Anyway,
yeah.
At best, he's a knockoff Thor. I think having him fight against Thor would be a great idea. However, they probably won't do that.
No, he's going to be like a comic antagonist for the first part of the movie, and then he'll be on the team
for like end. One scene. Is the thing. So this is something that I actually is a gripe about. It's so weird to me, and maybe this is why I have more of a come down for this too. Is that Ragnarok was such a come up for me that
right.
Growing up, I always hated Thor. Just thought he was the worst Avenger. He was boring and dumb and obnoxious and goofy in a way that clashed even with the other goofy people, because it's Asgard crap.
A Norse god, yeah.
Yeah. In addition to just being overpowered a la Superman, which tends to make you the most boring hero in the Justice League, in my opinion. So never, I never wanted, I mean, you told me at the outset of phase one that 15 years down the line, like Captain America and Iron Man and the Hulk are all going to be retired, but a fourth Thor movie is going to be like the one I'm anticipating the most. And like, that's the sub franchise that I had the most faith in. I would be shocked by that. But Hemsworth and T, give them their credit, had turned me around on that. And the Russo brothers too, because actually Thor's characterization in Infinity War and Endgame went a long way to also endearing him to me. I love what they did with him in that whole thing.
Yeah, he's been easily one of the most consistent performers across the boards on this thing. Like he's kind of just upped his game as it went on. I guess the consensus is that maybe a little too much Thor on this latest one, but I still liked him very much. I think he's very keyed in on what's appealing about this.
Yeah, well, I think the complaint's a lot that he's just too stupid in this one, but I don't know. I think they've got that lovable dummy thing down pat, where he's not as dumb as he looks, but he's kind of aware of how he presents as dumb now, and plays into it. But I mean, the character is not just Hemsworth was always kind of aware of that. But there's an inconsistency here just within the Thor series that has become a consistent inconsistency that is starting to bug me, that how every Thor movie tees up something for the next appearance to work off of, and the next movie does not actually deal with it. It just like brushes it aside immediately. And that goes back to Thor 1, where they end up destroying the Bifrost, so he like can't get back to Earth. The lovers are separated and so forth. And then
you must have used Odin magic to get him to Earth this time.
How much dark energy did it take? I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess he had to do something. Yeah. So Avengers comes around, he's just back. And then Thor 2 comes around, and now this Bifrost is back. Whatever, we don't care. And then Thor 2 ends, and Loki has sort of usurped the throne of Asgard as Odin in disguise. And then, Ragnarok comes around, and in one scene, Thor comes back, already knows it's him, and exposes him. And it's just, we have brushed that whole like potential plot line aside in the course of one scene.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Movie. Right.
Yeah, but Ragnarok is delightful in spite of that. So, okay, whatever. Ragnarok ends with Thor leading the Asgardian diaspora after they lose their homeland, and then Infinity War opens, and they've all been slaughtered, and that whole thing is done. And then Endgame ends, and he's going off to adventure with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I kind of just knew in my gut that we're going to get 2 scenes of this max. And then they're just going to part ways. And I'm like, that is such a letdown to me. Having a full-blown Thor Guardians team up would have been fun. It would have been as good as anything we got in this movie. I sort of understand the principle of trying to make this an actual Thor movie and not a team-up movie, but he's still the Thor character. There's not that much to do with him.
I think the way that would have worked for me is if it had been a Guardians film as opposed to a Thor film. Like, I want James Gunn to do the Guardians. Other people have done them successfully. The Russos handled them well, but like, I kind of like the idea of those are James Gunn's movies. I mean, they waited an extra 4 years to make it just so it could be James Gunn for the third one. And
I think the unfortunate part of that is that meant that they were sort of going back to a script, or at least an outline that Gunn had laid out prior to Endgame, setting up Thor as being with them. But I'm sure Gunn could write for Thor.
I'm sure he could.
In that context.
I'm sure he could. Yes.
And I feel like I feel a little robbed of that potential. Like, there's a fine scene or two with them here, but it is very palpable. Just, well, bye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, at no point did I expect otherwise, to be honest. I never thought that was going to materialize, and I certainly didn't as the Thor 4 marketing shaped up, and we get to see Natalie Portman and Christian Bale and Russell Crowe and all these things that they're juggling, and it's like, yep, there's Guardians there, but I bet they're not going to be there long, Like, and I figured it would be much along the way of what it was, which is like, well, we must part ways. I've had my time with you, and now we'll have to start my movie.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like I understand it, but I still don't like it. And
I think that's very fair.
In contrast to Ragnarok, saying where like there was a potentially intriguing idea here. You tossed it aside, and I'm a little like about that. But what the movie ends up doing is fun enough that I forgive it. And in this case, I'm like, what this movie is doing, the rest of it, it's not that good. The Thor the God Butcher stuff, or sorry, not Thor, but Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Is that intentional? Like making him sound just like Thor?
Probably not. I mean, he's from the comics, so it would have to be intentional there. Here, it's just that's what the character in the comics is named.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good villain performance.
Mm-hmm.
A little heavier than this Tona's movie can allow for.
Yeah, sure. But it's good. It's great. That opening scene is excellent. That opening is fantastic. It is. I love that scene. And I love the resolution of this character. And I love the scenes in the middle where he's slinking around like a Dark Souls enemy. I think he's a blast in this. I wish there were 2 more scenes of him. That's my big complaint about Gore. This could have been an all-time villain in the MCU for me if you gave him 2 more scenes as good as the one where he ripped the head off that critter and threw it at the kids. That, be the Halloween ghoul for more sequences. And we can get into this head because it's there. It's a good performance. And it's a well thought out character. Yeah. I do more with him. I wonder if there is more with him. And they because this does feel a bit cut down. I will have to admit.
And you know what? Talking about there should have been another scene with him. He should have killed the shit out of Peter Dinklage in this movie. That should have been a scene that was in here.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Why not?
Why? Yeah.
Do something with Dinklage. He would have come back to get killed by Christian Bale. Absolutely.
Yeah, why not? For one day's work, he would have come back and done the green screen. And there would have been a little more to this. I mean, I guess they figured that with Jane Foster dying in the end, that gave them like the stakes that they needed. Or, I mean, all the stakes maybe that this tone can handle. But I do think Gore the God Butcher should have killed some more gods, like you said. Like, he could have killed Sif, too. I mean, maybe Sif and Dinklage would have been overkilling.
Not even sure if Sif.
No. She shows up at the end with one arm, training the child army. Which, by the way, here's the difference: the child army stuff in this movie is terrible, just awful.
There's things I like. The little girl with shooting lasers out of a rabbit's eyeballs at dark monsters. That's fun. It is the same thing they did at the end of Shazam, but much worse than they did it in Shazam.
Yes, those were actual characters.
Yeah,
supporting characters, but established.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we complain about the length of these things. I think there's probably a cut of this that is 20 minutes longer that I think everyone gets. I feel like it because I don't know. I wanted just more of everything, to be honest. I wanted everything a little more developed or a little bit more extrapolated on. It just, to get this under 2 hours feels like they might have cut some potentially good material. That's really my only complaint with it, though. Like all this stuff fundamentally kind of worked for me. Screaming goats. It's funny.
The screaming goats are fantastic. The screaming goats and everything with the love triangle between Thor and his weapons.
Yes, just
killed in my theater, and I love it, and I will hear no words against it. But the kid army at the end, I recognize it as cute in theory. It is one of those things that just is over the line. That line of taking everything that was already pretty ridiculous and now it just looks dumb and terrible. And
I mean, fine. I'll allow that. That's okay. Does it not sort of set up the very end though? Does it not kind of
a little bit, but I don't even know that it needs, I mean, it sets Thor up as a horrible father that is sending children to fight demons in a way that they don't really have any other option, choices the way it's set up at the end. But
I mean, he could have blasted them away with his Bifrost axe.
There you go.
That was a choice that he could have done. Sent them all home right then.
So, I think my preferred version of this movie might have included instead of the child army at the end, you have Thor maybe be the one who's pushing the Guardians of the Galaxy way at the beginning instead of the other way around, and then somewhere along he has to sort of go crawling back to them and ask them for help in the finale.
Yeah, you're right. That's better.
I mean, anything
that is better.
You know what? Let's circle back to the kitty fight for the very end of this, because
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that'll segue us into the Disney Plus show. But in the meantime, I got another gripe. You said you only had the one gripe about this, but I got
Yeah.
another one here. I don't think Natalie Portman's very good in the superhero role here.
Oh, I think she's fine. I think she's consistent with the original version of Jane Foster, which was not what I'd call great Natalie Portman work.
Well,
Um,
yes, that would be my. I would say all of that, but in a meaner tone of voice, I guess.
yeah. I mean, that's fair. I didn't really care that the movie doesn't care about her as a superhero, to be honest. The cancer plot line is sort of her thing in this, and I've seen people complaining about this too. I really like it. I think it's really good, and it was effective for me. There are definitely moments that are that are just sort of tonally weird, kind of hilariously so. The scene of Thor in full He-Man armor in the hospital getting bad news. I'm sorry, but he's metastasized, Thor, and that's funny, unfortunately. But even still, I don't know. Much like with Gore and his pretty melodramatically tragic backstory, I think that this is a pretty serious stuff that they take on and treat it very, very lightly. And I don't know, maybe I've been conditioned by Ragnarok to see the positives in this, but I really like that now. I think that's kind of, for better or for worse, one of the defining characteristics of the Thor films is sort of laughing in the face of personal tragedy and
Yeah,
finding a bright side and continuing to see the goodness in the world as you lose everything, even in this
that
time
is
around your ex-girlfriend. Yeah.
that's part of the brilliance of the Infinity War Endgame characterization. There is it highlights sort of like how much those movies include up to Ragnarok have like how much loss they have dealt to Thor
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's very easy to miss because he's such a happy-go-lucky character, and it doesn't turn him into he doesn't go full Ronin the way Hawkeye does,
Right. Yeah,
like
exactly.
but it makes him a little more introspective, a little sadder around the edges, but he's still his essential self, and that's a really good balance they struck there, I thought.
Yeah, I love that. And if there's one thing that I really love that Taika has done here is that it's that. And I'm not surprised that they went to that well again or did that again here. I'm a little surprised that it turned so many people off. And like I think you said, I think it is a combination of Taika fatigue and Marvel fatigue that people
Yeah,
are not having this anymore.
and just and
Yeah.
again, I do think the humor is just not quite as consistent here, and part of that's that I don't want to say that like Portman's flubbing jokes or anything, but
Yeah, she wasn't nailing those.
Jane Foster does not have a strong comedic characterization for her to work off of, and the script is not bailing her out there. I think the cancer stuff actually works fine and gives this movie a little bit of oddly human scale, like
Yeah.
gravitas almost.
Oh, the ending got me. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The ending got me on this movie. I was shocked, but I was every emotional card they played at the end landed for me, and I was like, oh, seriously, god damn.
I was too, and then the goddamn post credits sequence unravels it for me. I'm like I know you're gonna do it. I know you're gonna do it. Don't fucking do it. Don't do it. And they did, and I mean that probably like lowered the whole film at
No, she
least
went to
half a letter
Viking
grade.
heaven. She went to Viking heaven.
They're teasing that it's like going to be a whole storyline.
No,
which,
I don't think
again,
so.
maybe
I don't
they'll
think so.
brush that aside one scene into the next movie.
I don't think I think that's the last we see of her. I think she went to heaven.
God, I hope
she's
so.
hanging out with Idris Elba. And I like what
God,
they did with
I
his
hope.
kid showing up in this. It all worked for me.
Yeah, I didn't mind that his kid. At least that's a kid that we have a little bit of context for and a little bit of
Yes.
characterization for. But the entire Muppet Mafia that is rolling around behind him. Do you have anything else to get into before we circle back to the Muppet army?
I think maybe that part of what I think maybe just the circumstances of my life being, like having lost somebody to cancer in the last few years, 5 years, and having a new child, new little girl, I think kind of primed me emotionally to accept everything this movie was putting out, maybe in a way that others weren't. But that maybe is what comes why I feel strongly about this one. I'm going to watch it a bunch more times though. This is one I feel like I've connected with now, and I'm going to look into it and see what's there really, how much I can get out of this one going forward. Yeah.
I was all for the thing of Thor becoming a dad. Felt like a bit abrupt, but I kind of liked that. The abrupt, and that, there was this very harsh, like you said, human level tragedy that, sticking its head into the big cartoony finale, and like, yeah, but by the way, none of the Thors can actually beat cancer, so she's just gonna die anyway. And then it's this sort of consolation,
something to care about.
For the villain and her, and that they all get a little something as they're dying there, and Thor gets it puts Thor into a new role.
A new thing I want to see with it. Like that's the thing promised more than Hercules, which I'm into, certainly more than Valhalla, which I hope never comes back, that I would like to see in a new Thor movie. Him raising a little girl, great fun. That's my fifth Thor film. I hope they make it.
We'll get 40 seconds of it, but
no. Yeah, she's joining the Young Avengers. Yeah,
I liked the idea of that, and then kind of hated the idea that but he's also like sending her into battle at age 8. Like what?
It's Asgardian-ish. She has power of somebody. Thor, I guess. I'm not sure.
I guess so.
But I love that. That's
seeing
the
it
resolution for Gore too, though. Like
that is for that part's great.
Like him, Thor basically talks to him and is like, "This is not what you actually want. This is what you actually want, love." And it's just like, "Oh yeah, that is what I wanted. That makes perfect sense with my backstory." So I thought this was well put together. I get that the structure maybe, you could bring this stuff more to the fore. That's why I want the 20 minutes longer version of this maybe. But on the other hand,
it was wearing out welcome with a lot of people already. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm alone on this one. Maybe I don't know. Maybe this
a
will
little
get a
bit
reappraisal in some time. But I think what it really is people have had it.
Yeah,
I think people are tired for whatever's next.
Yeah, and that's too bad. And look, I am positioned as a naysayer on this episode here, but again, I don't think this was a bad movie exactly. I think it doesn't hang together that well, but it's less than the sum of its parts by a pretty wide margin. But it has some great component parts to it. That it's got Chris Hemsworth performance as Thor. It's got Korg. It's got screaming goats. It's got Russell Crowe's weird, just overtly racist Greek accent.
Yeah, pretty racist.
He's just doing the John Belushi cheeseburger bag of chips thing, right?
That's like doing a Mario Brothers Italian voice. Honestly, it's just.
It is pitched exactly that high. I can't believe they did it in 2022, but I kind of love it. And it's got Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie is still a nice value add that she's good here.
Mm-hmm.
I would have preferred the Guardians of the Galaxy as a unit to Valkyrie and Jane Foster and Korg, but that's not the worst unit to go around if you're in a Thor movie. They beat the hell out of the Warriors 3.
Yeah, and all this lands for me.
Okay, so getting back to the Muppets and the fighting Muppets.
Yeah,
there's a thing that I'm noticing, a recurring motif throughout all the Marvel stuff now that I don't think I'm into. So let me take a anti-democratic stance to superhero movies, which is that all of the recent Marvel stuff seems to be trending towards the direction of this everybody's a hero thing, right? Everybody, not just everybody's a hero, but everybody's the hero. So all these kids get the power of Thor in this movie. And meanwhile, we got however many Spider-Man running around in that movie. I mean, and Spider-Verse too. Into the Spider-Verse is all about how anybody can be a Spider-Man if you're pure of heart or whatever, and get bitten by a radioactive spider or have a Japanese cartoon robot. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing they'd left out of that. I'm always just like, but they need to get bitten by a spider,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Right.
And then the multiverse, Doctor Strange. There's Doctor Strange's and Loki's running around everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
even like, and you can be Hawkeye too if you want to be, if you're that weird kid, uh, and and now there's however many Miss Marvels running around
3, I believe.
at three and counting.
Yeah.
We'll see. Um, and I don't know. I don't mind it entirely. I mean, we're getting Armor Wars too, right? So that's going to be everybody's wearing Iron Man armor.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah. There is another Iron Man on top of
mhm.
War Machine coming.
Oh, we got
Yeah.
three, three Airsats Captain Americas running around too.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe
And
this
a
is
handful of Thors now. Yeah.
right. There's multiple Thors, multiple Captain Americas. There's everybody. There's multiple copies of everybody, and not just like
New Hulk coming.
multi-dimensional clones. Yeah, we have a She-Hulk to go with our Hulk, and sometimes like individually these can play well to me in the story, the context of the story, that Shazam
Mm-hmm.
democratizing those powers amongst the other orphan kids there, I think works very nicely for that movie, and I kind of like that as a message. But overall, this entire Marvel universe all trending this way, it dilutes the power and the specialness of being a superhero to me if a half dozen people can be the same superhero. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's The Incredibles. Yes, right.
But the Incredibles are.
Sorry, no,
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
dismissing
Sorry,
I'm
the theme.
the Randian philosophy of The Incredibles. Yeah, I I hear what you're saying. Anyone can be a Moon Knight. Yeah, and I think that the instinct to take it in this direction has come from the idea of democratizing power and or maybe audience share, however you want to look at it.
I think it overlaps. There's sort of those nice ideas of democratizing power that overlaps with the Disneyfication of it and trying to market to kids by being like, hey kids, you can be
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to just watch your hero, you can be your hero too. And how it sort of,
Or some variant version thereof, yes.
especially with the Young Avengers stuff, that now we're getting these new characters that are younger versions. I guess the term is legacy hero, right?
I
Where they're
suppose it's a little weird that so many of them are going to be Pee-wee versions of existing heroes. Yeah,
and those
like
kids are supposedly fanboys or fangirls
many of them are.
of the original thing, which
Yeah.
I think it's sort of trying to flatter fandom in a way that I do not like. As a member of fandom, I'm like, don't you condescend to me this way, you pricks. Like, I know I'm not Luke Skywalker. You don't need to just show me Luke Skywalker doing a cool thing.
I don't know. I think some of that's kind of nice. I really liked how it's
Some of
handled
it
in
is
Miss Marvel. Yeah, like as an overwhelming policy about what they're putting out there. Maybe it's not ideal. Kind of need to see how it pans out. Really, I think. It's a bit much now. Just the glut of that story being told. But I have hope for some of those things. The new Avengers movie or the Young Avengers movie that hasn't even been announced, but everyone just pretty much assumes what is going to happen based on how these stories are being told.
Mm-hmm.
There's at least 3 people in there that I'd be excited to see in a film. That I think, Spider-Man, young hot girl
Red
woman,
Widow.
what's her name? Yeah, she'll be in there. And young hot girl, and now Kamala Khan. That's a good crew. I mean, I guess Kamala Khan will be in the Miss Marvel section of the new teams, rather than the
Yeah,
Young Avengers, or maybe both. Who knows? Who knows?
I
But
think it would certainly be both. They're not going to keep her out of Young Avengers. I mean, that would
no,
be
why
crazy,
not?
right?
Why would you? Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That, she kind of is the exact promise of what that is supposed to be. Like,
Yes. the most successful overall of the Disney Plus shows, I would say that one.
I think
But
so. Yeah. I think that is a pretty good one. I don't think it's excellent. I don't think they've done excellent yet on Disney Plus.
No, they certainly have not.
Yeah.
That one, I don't know. I guess WandaVision and Loki were both kind of unique in what they were trying, but
Yeah.
you know, I guess more formally unique, whereas just focusing in so intently on an underrepresented community feels more unique than whatever the branching timeline, you know, alligator clone man stuff that Loki was doing, that, which has kind of slipped off the back of my mind now. I could,
No, I would, like, now, about a year after that came out, I would be at a loss to explain what was going on in Loki. That's for sure.
yeah.
Um, on
And
the other hand, I no. On the other hand, you're right. The Miss Marvel is exactly what you can do on television that you can't do in movies. That's what's kind of cool about it. It is taking you into a sort of a new place that you're not really familiar with, and you get to spend some time there and get to know the people there. It's what the I would say the Netflix shows were when they were most successful. They were doing a version of this, the Daredevils and Luke Cages and such.
yeah, I would say the front half of the Luke Cage series, at least,
Yeah.
was sort of doing that.
Yeah.
It did established a community within the larger world that we were focusing in on, that had its own perspective on the superhero stuff. Going back to the Young Avengers, I have a bit of a concern. Maybe it's just a concern troll to throw out there, but like you said, there are a few Young Avengers heroes that I like to watch and we're kind of interested in seeing more of, that you rattled off there. But I have a bit of a concern about how they will play together, because if you think about, like, Spider-Man is the bridge from the old world to the new world, right? And or the old phases to the new phase. And what's his defining personality traits are that he's this young, well-meaning but kind of hapless, little clumsy, hero that is also sort of like, has some hero worship of the prior generation, being Iron Man in his case. And then you look at Kate Bishop, and what's her personality like? Well, she's kind of a young, well-meaning, but kind of hapless, socially awkward person, but who's ultimately heroic, but also has like a hero worship thing with the original Hawkeye. And what's Kamala Khan's basic personality type? It's that she's young and a little manic, like they all are, but well-meaning and hero worship of the prior hero. And it's just, maybe, hopefully, Black Widow's sister can throw a wrench in that and bring a different sort of vibe to it. But when I think back to the original Avengers crew, it was not so much that it was so exciting to see Thor's powers interacting with Iron Man's suit.
Not at all, really. No.
But the personalities there were so big, and the
and
egos
contrasted. Yeah.
Yes. The Captain America is, stolid, decent to a fault, kind of a little bland thing that Chris Evans pulls off, but it's still like he is the embodiment of America, and there's an ego that goes along with that. Iron Man and Thor's egos are obviously enormous,
but they're different kind of huge egos.
Exactly. But yes, they are big. And I just go, where's the clash of personalities going to come from in the Young Avengers?
That is a fair point. I do think, these things are, the harsh truth, of course, is that we are aging out of the demographic they care about, especially with this thing. And
for sure.
And that this will be for kids who are maybe even kids who are too young to really be part of that first wave Avengers kind of stuff.
I do think that there's something about, this is a whole can of worms that we won't go too far into right now, but there is something about, like you said, the rhythms of storytelling have changed, I feel like, over the last decade or so. And part of that is, like, I guess it's the fan fiction aspect of it. It's, it ties back to what we complained about in other spaces about legacy sequels, being this, the grip of decades past will not let go of our current pop culture. And so you end up with these characters who are themselves, fan avatars and fans of the thing that are.
Does that speak directly to them, though? Is that what the kids these days want?
Yeah, and maybe that works for them, but for me, it still strikes this old vibe of it's pandering in a bad way. It's flattering the
Mm-hmm.
sensibilities of fans rather than, not that you need to tell them the most challenging story in the world, but just a real story that has some ups and downs and challenges to it. And maybe
It's
young kids don't care about that in the same way that I do.
it does remain to be seen if these characters can kind of resonate and carry the thing in the way that the ones that they are directly based on have, like,
Yeah,
because or are they just kind of doomed to be a copy of a copy, forever. I could see
I
that happening very easily.
I think
It's a
that's going to be a
shame.
real hard thing to overcome. I
It's
mean, they're
Yeah,
stacking, banking all the talent they can to overcome that with some of these performers, but
it's such a shame
it's
about
hard.
T'Challa, man.
Yeah.
That would have just held the whole thing together. I think just having Chadwick Boseman's presence as like a major ongoing concern, because he was just getting going.
Yeah.
Like it would have been. We would have had another couple Black Panther movies starring him, at least, probably more. He could kind of be a rallying figure for all the bigger, larger group things that are going to happen. And yeah, his
Instead, we're
loss. I
going to
mean,
get a
now,
Wakanda Forever that
yeah,
culminates with
a new version
ev-
of Black. Yeah,
well, no, and with
it's
every single supporting character having a bite of the lotus and all gaining Black Panther powers to
probably. Oh, you're
team
right.
up against the bad guy.
Yeah, you're right.
And it sucks to know that a year out without
Uh,
having read a single thing about that actual production.
God damn it, that's exactly what it's going to be. And then you can do the I don't remember the damn Shuri.
Shuri,
You can do the
yeah,
Shuri series. You can do the M'Baku series. You can do
mm,
I don't know. I imagine what the other one.
Kahlua.
Yeah, Kalua. Why not him too? All of them. Yeah. The Dora Milaje, all that stuff. You can do. They're doing a Wakanda Forever TV show on
They
Disney
are.
Plus.
Oh, I thought that was the name of the movie.
It is. Well, the movie is called Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Oh
And
yeah, okay.
then there is another project which has a working title, Wakanda Forever, that is sort of stories of Wakanda.
Okay.
Black Panther was a very big hit.
No, it was. You
And
know.
yeah, I know. They got dealt a really bad hand
Mhm.
there. And it's a shame. Everyone wanted more of that. and and now they got to figure it out. And
Yeah,
and that's
that
going
is
to be
such a shame.
hard. That is going to be so hard for them to nail.
Mhm. Well, and I like sighed so heavily there when you said that it was more just that, oh, there's going to be another streaming show that I didn't even know about, and
Yeah.
how I said that the weight of those is piling up on my shoulders.
It's a
Um,
problem. It is a
but
problem. How many more this year? She-Hulk by the end of the summer, and there'll be another one
yeah,
before Christmas. I guarantee it. I don't even know what.
Tatiana Maslany, that's some more talent to bank there. I mean,
Sure.
the trailer doesn't look good,
No.
but
No.
trailers don't mean that much overall. Uh, you know, something else that I think ties into this, again, another giant can of worms that I'm just gonna peek open real quick and then slam shut as we wrap up here. But I think the stuff I was talking about earlier about flattering of audiences and fandoms, especially, I think that is overlapped a lot with this sort of increasing awareness of representation issues, and even it's just in the form of like fear of Twitter backlash,
Mm-hmm.
for when you don't do right by your black character in the movie or whatever. And it strikes me that there's a well-meaning like thing behind that of like, well, we gotta make something really inspiring and relatable to the people of this demographic that have been so well served, and that just leads to flattering the character and not challenging them properly or whatever. And when that is bad, like say for example Captain Marvel movie, I think suffers from this, that's a movie where I feel like the self-awareness of this is the big debut of Marvel's female superhero, and so we have to like make sure that we don't mess this up, and so they never even like really mess her hair up at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it strikes me that the best examples of actually expanding the Marvel color palette or demographic palette are Black Panther and Miss Marvel, which are similar in that they are set entirely in these communities where it's not just the hero has to represent that entire ethnicity in its entirety, but like the whole supporting cast is also of that ilk, and so they get to kind of have more individuality, more differing personality traits, actually clash with each other a little bit, and that just makes them all more interesting, and the whole package more interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you really feel like you are entering that world, and you're in seeing all the people that live within there.
It's weird that Captain Marvel is the most powerful being in the cosmos, and the origin of her powers is that she like got space motor oil spilled on her.
She got sprayed by a reactor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by an engine.
Really?
She got engine grease dripped on her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just weird that engine grease is what held the ultimate cosmic power, that like to rival the Infinity Stones.
It seems like a replicatable,
right?
Kinda,
More so than a lot of these.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that was sort of the idea, as they were trying to. Not really. They weren't really looking into that. They were just harnessing her as a weapon. They weren't trying to figure any of that out. The Kree, which are sometimes blue. I don't remember that movie very well. They're not all blue, right?
The Kree Empire is expansive enough to encompass multiple species, I believe. Mm-hmm. But we'll find out more about that in the Marvels.
When's that coming out? Is that coming out this year?
I don't know. These things sneak up on me. Like I don't really like, because I in trying to avoid spoilers and also not just feel the oppressive weight of She-Hulk bearing down on my shoulders, I just wait until the week before. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna. I mean, it's kind of happened. I don't know what the next one is. Probably She-Hulk. We'll talk about this again soon. Yeah.
I got a 12-year-old in my house. I got to take to see all this stuff.
Wakanda forever. Yeah. All right. We got a babysitter for Thor. We're just like we got to get out of the house to see Thor. What are we gonna do?
I mean, coming off of Ragnarok, that was a must see. Like I was disappointed by it, but
I loved it.
More so than Ant-Man, Quantumania, or the Marvels. I think Thor felt like an event.
Mm-hmm. And that's it for now. Talk to you next time.